Hello and welcome to the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by my hooded, sweatshirted friend, Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you?
I'm bright-tailed and bushy-eyed.
We are... Well, first, I want to tell everyone about a winning the audition that I did recently with Hiram Diaz, which you can learn all about.
Did you win?
At winning the audition. I did, but that's because it was on Tuba. Winningtheaudition.com/Hiram. And he did a 1-hour deep dive into his preparation for the President's Own Marine Band, but he talked a lot about practicing in general. And he actually went deeper on visualization. Like he was talking about like Google image searching, like the place where the audition, it was fascinating. So if you want to learn more about that, this one is a highly recommended for Euphonium players and anybody else. Winningtheaudition.com/Hiram. So now let's get to the important part here. Is that we were going to be interviewing Amy Schumaker Bliss, which this conversation was awesome. She's wonderful. This was great. Sometimes they don't always fly by. This one flew by.
Yeah,
right?
she's great.
Yeah.
Really fun.
But Lance and I always get on like 15 minutes beforehand is like the standard so that we can get our ducks in a row and, and I can remind Lance who we're talking to and, all that because he's older and, all that stuff. So I get a text that is about like 6 minutes into that window, right? So it's like probably about 9 minutes till where I'm like, starting to be like, oh, is he coming? And I knew he was. But then what was the text that you sent me, Lance?
I don't remember. I'll have to look. I'm sleep-addled, so...
I believe that... go ahead.
Direct quote. Dog diarrhea situation, period. Literal comma, not figurative, period. Will be on ASAP, period.
And he logged on about 30 seconds before Amy, and we greeted Amy with a, hey, guess what Lance was just dealing with? It was very funny. That I'm a horrible person because Lance is like a brother to me. So the fact that he sent me that and was in that kind of distress filled me with joy.
Yeah, she's still not right. It's 2 sleepless nights.
Oh, goodness.
This was the scene of the crime, the interior crime. There's right there, right there, and right there. So.
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me that I needed to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces, that might be my finest segue yet. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model tuba mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke Model euphonium mouthpiece. Find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We haven't sent Parker any emails in a while, have we?
No, that's a good question.
If you go to parkermouthpieces.com and maybe send him an unsolicited story about your pet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that's what you should do. It could be a uplifting, could be sad, it could be whatever.
Doesn't have to be like parrot, lizard,
pet,
snake, pet.
Yes, yep, ferret, goat. He's got goats.
There you go.
Yeah, he lives out in the middle of nowhere. So this conversation that we had with Amy was just great. She's awesome.
Really cool. Well, and I had just I have some of the students in my studio are big fans of what she posts on social media. So I actually got to watch she talks about this premiere she just did. So I got to see a recording of that, which was awesome. And we get into talking about this children's book that she wrote and it's like fascinating career, like project-based career, which is like each thing is cooler than the last.
She's had a very thoughtful career. It's like it feels like she's not just checking boxes. It feels like she's got a lot of intent behind what she does and how she does it. And I always love talking to people who that is the case. And yeah, This was really wonderful. So without further ado, let us get to the awesome conversation that we had with Euphonium player Amy Shoemaker Bliss.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more content by the Brass Junkies, just click on the like and subscribe button. You'll have an opportunity to see some of the greatest brass players in the world, and Andrew and me.
And today on the Brass Junkies, we are joined by a euphonium player who has a creative output that is hard to even wrap your head around.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
That's awfully nice of you.
And we are also joined by Amy Schumaker Bliss. So, Amy, it must be an honor for you to be here with Lance.
Of course.
Yeah,
the euphonium players are outnumbering you, so.
Yeah, well, that's okay. It's better. Well, I've said too much. So, Amy is active in the brass band scene. She's like releasing albums. She's like releasing children's books. She's premiering like soon to be standard repertoire for the euphonium. She launched a new podcast. She's got she's very busy. So and it's all like cool stuff in my opinion. Not that you should be seeking my validation, but it's really interesting. Like, so it's really exciting to have you.
Oh, thank you.
Where do we start, Lance? I don't even know where to start. There's like 8 things we can start with.
Well, let's start with the most recent thing. Why don't you talk about the premiere that just happened?
Yeah. So Wendy Matthews called me, and she's the interim band director over at Kent State, and she said, I want to get you in sometime to play something. What do you want to do? And I thought about it. What can we do? What would work well with her ensemble? And nothing seemed to be a perfect fit. And then I thought, well, I commissioned Lucy Pankhurst to write a piece a few years ago. And it was for euphonium and piano. And I thought that would sound really great as a wind ensemble piece. So we approached Lucy, and she actually said that when she wrote the piece, the wind ensemble arrangement was the one that she had in her head, and she had to kind of condense it to be the piano arrangement. So we were off to the races. We were figuring out how to do this. We had scheduled 2 possibilities in the spring for this, but one was like the week before I was going to play with another orchestra in Pennsylvania. And I was like, well, I mean, I would feel like a superstar going from one solo gig to another, but that would be kind of craziness.
It's aggressive.
Yeah, it's aggressive, especially with 2 kids at home. Like, here, husband, take my kids for like a week and a half. I don't think that would go over well. And then the other one was...
Wait a minute, hold on, I'm sorry. Kids. Well, no, I just want to point out that she just very low key was like, "Here, take my kids." I like that. Sorry, continue.
They're his too. Too.
There was a couple of times when I referred to watching our son when he was younger as babysitting. This is reminding me, and my wife was like, "You literally cannot babysit your own child.
Yeah.
There's a word for it. They call it parenting." Like,
yeah.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sorry, continue.
so that would have been like a train wreck of just like, I mean, he could have done it, but he would have just been exhausted. So then the other time was the week before NABA, and so I was like, some people might hate me if I did that. So we were the other weekend was insanely close to the time that we started this project. So Lucy pretty much busted her butt, and she got the arrangement done. And so at a certain point, Wendy called me and she was like, "Okay, so how about we do this in like 2 weeks?" And I was like, "Okay, well, let's go for it." I don't think it was 2 weeks. I think it was a whopping 3 weeks. And we were like, "Okay, well," and so I remember I was like, let's do this." So the first time we ran through it, everyone was like, "This is awesome." Especially there's a movement called Hatshepsut, which in the piano version, we're kind of playing it kind of like a distant memory of Hatshepsut. And in the beginning of the wind ensemble arrangement, it is like boom at the beginning. Someone in the audience, you can't hear it in the recording, but someone screamed. It was like my own. It was It was awesome. I was like, whoa.
I love watching the downbeat of Mahler 1, like, boom, shika, and it's like the third movement is just dying down for like minutes. And I once took a friend. Actually, this was conducted by Bernard Haitink, who just passed away. But I took a friend who was not a classical music person, and he was loving the whole thing. But I was like, "Hey, dude, watch. Yeah, just wait." And then, sure enough, there were people like we were towards the back of the floor at Symphony Hall in Boston. There were a whole bunch of people who I think that was his favorite part of the whole evening.
Oh man, I mean, it was just like it was so present. It was like Hatshepsut was just gonna like burst through the doors. I mean, it was so
awesome.
cool. It was so cool. Lucy's arrangement was amazing, and she's working on a lot of projects. I know we're playing one of her pieces, a tuba feature with Athena at Midwest.
Cool.
And I mean, it's just like she's taken off.
Wow.
She's doing lots of stuff. And her understanding of brass. I mean, she's a brass player, so her understanding of the medium is just fantastic.
So how did the conception of the piece come together?
Yeah, so I commissioned the piece for the IWBC. I was one of the featured artists in 2017. I'm gonna say 2017.
Andrew will fact
we'll go
check
with
that.
it.
He's
We'll go with it. It was.
He's having a hard time spelling IWBC. Hold on.
Hey, we are known as a podcast that is factually accurate. We can't have people having to double check our facts. Although I guess nowadays you just have to just say it loud enough and then it's true. So
That's
just say it again, repeat the date, but just say it like you would stake your life on it, and then it will be so.
It was 2017 because my son was born in 2016 and he was like 8 months at that point. So I'm going to 2017, but I had her write this piece. Final answer. Yeah.
According to your bio, that is accurate. Actually,
sweet.
It is 2017.
Great. There we go. So she was going to be one of the featured composers, and so I wanted to commission a work by her. She also went to the RNCM, so I was kind of like, hey, So I said I had recently kind of learned more than I just kind of generally knew about Hildegard. And I thought, like, she's such a fascinating person, and we should kind of bring her a little bit more to light. And then I thought, what if we did a piece about women who, not the ones that like everyone knows, but like just a level below, the ones that people might have like recognized the name maybe. But the idea is then you listen to it and you're like, who are these people? And you look them up. So we chose Emmeline Pankhurst, which if you take a moment to realize, Emmeline Pankhurst and Lucy Pankhurst, Emmeline Pankhurst led the British right to vote, and that was like her great an ancestor. She's related. And so she was saying that she was kind of waiting for the right piece to put her in.
That's cool.
And so I'm kind of honored that she chose to put her in there. And then we had Hildegard and Hatshepsut and Margaret Hamilton, who wrote the code for the missions to the moon. So it's kind of cool. There's like a famous picture of her like standing next to all the code, and it's like up to like here. It's like up to like her shoulder or something like that. So those are the people who we chose, and I think the Margaret Hamilton movement is just a blast. I mean, there's like foil on the timpani and all of these crazy, percussion instruments. The percussionists were having a blast playing it. And then that, with the muted euphonium, and it's just at one point the whole machine breaks down. Everything just breaks, and then the tubas and timpani start bringing it back. Boom.
We're fixers.
Boom, 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 and it just kind of takes off from there. So it's kind of cool.
So are there plans to record the version that you just played?
Not yet, but you just planted an idea in my head.
There you go. You're welcome.
Yeah.
She has to go. I'm fascinated by like this 3-week time table. I mean, like, which you obviously knew the piece. I'm sure you had to brush up a little bit, but if anyone hasn't heard Amy, you should. She's a phenomenal player. So I'm sure you just had to brush up on some stuff. But it's like, oh, by the way, Lucy, you need to write like this much code. Yeah, by no, not within 3 weeks, because that's when it's being performed. They could use it by like Wednesday. And then the college kids, learned it fast, and that's fascinating and cool that it came together so well.
Well, she had a head start. So because we were talking in it must have been August. So we're like, let's get this done. It would be awesome if we could do it at the first concert of the year. But we were just like, we're giving her like no time to do this. So we'll plan on it being at one of the spring shows, but she got it done.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, it all worked out how it was supposed to.
And so what sort of conversations did you have? I mean, how familiar? She's a brass player, so did you have any conversations about what you hoped your part would be like? Yeah,
we. I wanted. I had some alternate pitches written in, because I said I wanted it to be accessible for like a senior recital level. But her artistic vision, brought it a little bit higher in range than I thought that a senior undergrad would be able to reach. So any note that went above C, she has alternate pitches for. So I pretty much just let her go with what she wanted to do, but I just had that kind of little added in there that I wanted to make sure that it was accessible. Because I think it's a cool piece that would fit some senior recitals,
Yeah, it's a great piece. Really good.
What is your advice to someone who has never commissioned a composer before? Like if there's a young person listening to this, like what's their first step?
Really just reach out. I mean, because you might feel it might feel a little bit awkward just approaching a composer, but I promise they're friendly people. But you just reach out and you just say, this is an idea, and through the IWBC there were a few times that we tried to commission something, and the composer said, I'm scheduled out until, such and such time, so this is the timeline that we'd be able to fit in, or, we need to budget this much, and that was beyond our price range. But, in the case of Lucy, she had an idea that kind of needed to get out too, and so it was kind of like this kind of fit. So sometimes when you approach a composer, they might have an idea that kind of, morphs with your idea, and then it just starts taking off, and then it becomes its own project, its own thing. And that's what happened in this case. It's a little bit of it's Lucy, it's my ideas, and it's just kind of molded. We started with Hildegard and added Emmeline, and then Hatshepsut and Margaret Hamilton joined in. And then when she finished those two, it was like, I think this is it. I think this is the piece.
Wow.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Hey, Lance.
What? Yes, Andrew?
Well, could you tell us a little about the Papert people?
Yes, I would be happy to. The Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University is a fine institution in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, of which it is one of those things today. And so if you click on the link in the show notes below, you'll be taken to a page where you can find out all the ways you can get involved in music and brass at the Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They have been a longtime sponsor of the Brass Junkies, and we greatly appreciate it. So it would mean a lot to us if you would visit that site. And a very, very special thanks to Jim, who is both beautiful and sunny Nova, for making that possible.
I thought you were going to say it would mean a lot to us if you attended that school.
Oh, it would mean a lot. It would. Say, this is why we're paying tuition to go here, just because these nitwits said that you should.
But if you're a violinist, make sure you heard it here, because I'm pretty sure that their ad stuff comes from the brass budget, and so that could make the string department have to help kick in. So yeah,
good point.
Just in the interests of being fair. So you mentioned the Athena brass band, and which I'm happy that ensemble exists. And you just look at the photo on the website, and you're like, whoa. I mean, there's some heavy hitters in that band. Can you tell us, first of all, for anyone who doesn't know it, just tell us a little bit about the group, and then tell us what it's like to play with them?
Yeah, Athena Brass Band is basically it's an all-female all-star brass band that is either international or national, based on depending on the performance and logistics. They've played, well, they obviously play at the International Women's Brass Conference. They play at Gettysburg sometimes. Athena's playing at Midwest coming up in December. And then a random smattering of other events when possible. It's just phenomenal to get to play with the group. Like, the first few notes is just like wow. Like, I fangirl. Like, I have to resist just fangirling. Like, I'm like in the ensemble, I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, what is your favorite concert that you've ever played with that group?
Oh man. The last IWBC, we played what's the Spark piece? Dragon's Den?
In the Dragon's Den? No, Dragon.
What is that thing?
No, You're the Dragon.
You're the Dragon. That's it. Yeah. That's it. That was really fun because it was like, I've played that with various groups, and you get to, I think it's like the last movement or whatever. It's really pretty technical, and every ensemble I've ever played in, it's like the first run through, which is like everyone's trying to just do their own noodling, and no one is. And
that's not the tubas. The tubas are.
And like we all got together. We just sight read down the whole thing, and it was totally together, like from the get go. And I'm like playing, and I'm trying. Just focus, Amy. Focus. But I wanted to zoom out at that moment and just observe everything, because I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. Like, first run. So that performance was pretty cool. I was playing with Bente Illevold, and she's a fantastic player. And that was when I really got to know her as well. So now we're great friends, and it's just, that was a really great performance. That was fun. We played at Gettysburg. I played with them there, and that was also fun because I got to go back to kind of my old stomping grounds. I moved from the Philadelphia area to the Columbus area in the middle of a pandemic. Why not? Great time to move. And so it was nice to go back to Gettysburg and kind of see some I got to see the Atlantic people, lots of hugs and everything. It was nice to see them. And that performance, that was really coming together as just people, because it was just like, different bands would grab different people to just jump in, because there were various people who couldn't come because of the pandemic. Some people had to be in quarantine from various bands. And so like the whole day you'd see, mixed up uniforms across the board, because it was like this person from this band was jumping into this band, and these people were jumping in there, and we had some people jump into our band to help out, and it was really cool, because it was just kind of trying to make music happen.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm sure that was therapeutic. I mean, it's because we were all missing so much of that stuff.
Yeah, I think that was my first, I had some rehearsals. We had some like rehearsals outside in a pavilion, but that was my first performance back. I brought a bottle of Euphonium. I don't know if you've ever seen Euphonium wine. But there's a wine called Euphonium. It's Australian. It's fantastic too.
I gotta look this up.
It's called Keaton Euphonium. Keynton Euphonium.
Huh.
Yeah, Laura Lineberger and I had some, and Ginger Turner, and it was great.
Like during your rests, or was this after the concert?
No, it was definitely after the show.
The rule is, if you're subbing with someone, if you're not in the same uniform, you're allowed to get hammered during the performance. So those are the brass band rules. They were unwritten, but hundreds of years old.
I haven't seen Laura in a million years. Laura and I were banging around the military bands about the same time.
Yeah.
So you wrote a children's book.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. That's so cool. Like, you there's probably, I probably know a very small number of people who are like, what would be a cool idea is to write a children's book. And then but then to actually go to like, no, really, I should do that. And then like, for it to go to, there is a book that I could have delivered to my house in a couple of days. Mm-hmm. Talk us through that process. Like, what made you want to write one in the first place? And then what does that process look like?
Yeah. So I wanted to write a children's book because when my first son was born, everyone was giving us like music gifts, and it was all like orchestral stuff. And if it wasn't orchestral, it was like horribly, like the instruments were just wrong. There was one book that I found that had like a bassoon and a marching band, and I was like, that is an awful, awful idea.
I want to see that marching band.
Right.
I brought a child into this world where this book exists. What have we done?
So I wasn't seeing my instrument in these books. I wasn't seeing what I do in these books, and also these books were overwhelmingly white and male, and I was just like, this needs to change. And so I did some research, and I found there was a book, there's like a novel put out by the Salvation Army with some main characters who were in a brass band, which is out of print. It was published in like the 70s. But other than that, I did not find a book about British brass band anywhere. So I remember I was stuck in my car because at that point my son wasn't going to sleep during the day unless we drove him somewhere. So I drove him around, and then I'm stuck in the car because I'm obviously not going to like leave him. So I
there's a difference between you and Andrew right there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do? And the ideas kind of started bubbling in my brain. So I grabbed a whole bunch of the books that we were given, and I kind of leafed through them in the car and started formulating, the general idea, like the format of like, we're going to have some words here, and then we're going to have a picture of the instruments. And so we'll introduce the genre. And then, as we went, I went at that point, I thought, like, is this doable? And, still didn't know if it was doable, but I contacted one of my friends, who also had a kid like the same age, and she's out in, I think Washington. She moved since then, I think, but, she was out in Washington, and I said, are you interested in this project? She's a fantastic illustrator and just general artist, does like, everything. So I said, if we do this, like, we're going to do this like on our time, I'll work at it a little, you'll work at it a little. So we started kind of formulating an idea and a general concept. And we just kind of got started with it. And then I started looking at potential publishers. And so at that point, I settled on Book Baby, partially because it was like a 10-minute drive from where we lived at the time. So, I could save on shipping, which with many hundred books that can kind of build up pretty quickly. So I settled on them, and we started getting to work. And so the goals of the book were to introduce, obviously the primary goal is to introduce British brass band to a young audience. But the secondary goal is to allow any kid to see themselves playing in a musical ensemble. So we really tried to expand the diversity that kids would see in a musical ensemble, not just brass band. So we tried to include a huge variety of different kinds of people in that ensemble. And since then I get like pictures from around the world of little kids, especially practicing their conducting. I get lots of pictures because there's a spread with a conductor, and I thought, well, let's make this interactive. We'll put beat patterns for 2, 3, and 4 on the page and make it bright and colorful. And the kids will start by like tracing it, and then you see them tracing it in the air, and I get videos of kids who want to be conductors now. And it's really cool. And right now I have the book translated into Spanish. But it's in the process of being republished in Spanish so that we can reach even more kids. Because I think once I realized, like, the book is available worldwide. And so it's really cool. Like, every now and then I'll just be a little bit vain and like Google it, and I can see it in languages that I can't read. I saw it in Arabic and I was like, what? So it's really cool.
Wow.
So, that's generally, so the next step in this project is to get it out there, in Spanish, I think.
So cool.
Yeah.
Representation is so important, and that is something that has only recently made my radar at all, because to give myself a pass, it's understandable why it didn't make my radar, because I always saw people that looked like me doing this thing on stage, in books, in in movies, in everything. But a story that I think I shared a long time ago on the podcast, but that I think you're going to appreciate, is that my wife is a middle school band director. She's amazing. She conducts in the summers at the University of Maine, and she was conducting the middle school band at their summer band camp. And there was, at the end of the concert, there was some 6th grade girl who came up to her and told her that she's from a very small town in Maine, and that until that week that she had never seen a female conductor in her life, because the band director in that town was a man, or is a man, and she had never seen a woman conductor. And she told my wife that before that week, that she thought that she wanted to become a band director, but that after seeing Tiffany doing it, that she knew that it was possible, and that she was positive that she wanted to do it.
That's amazing.
Right.
And that's why we have a black woman as the conductor in my book, because we're like, who do I not see? Who do I not see conducting enough? Let's make this person visible so that you know, kids can see different conductors. People can see. At first we were like, how do we make sure that this isn't like token diversity? And so we were like, well, we'll put a Muslim woman playing the tuba on the first page. So it was like, we were just like, this is just like, but they're characters. They're actual, if you follow through the book, each section, when we introduce a section, that whole section is throughout the book. You see them. And there are people who are real people too. The cornet player in the band, is, what is it? Malcolm McDuffie, yeah. The trumpet player, who has leg braces. He had polio when he was a kid. And so there are leg braces on one of the cornet players, you know? And so there are, one of the tuba players was inspired by a girl who plays tuba, in the UK, and she's just a tiny thing. And she has this huge, like massive B flat, and she just kills it. I mean, it's like amazing. So there are a lot of real people, you know, the characters are inspired by real people, and the ones that aren't real, I had kind of ideas of who they were, you know. And so we put a lot into that book. And also like the pictures are, I mean, the pictures are cartoon stylized, but if you look at a real instrument, any of those instruments, like you can actually figure out what make it, you know, what model horn that is. I mean, we're not labeling it, but it's so close to a real instrument, all the tubes. Because I said, I'm so sick and tired of these instruments that look totally unreal. So all of that, you know, there were times that, you know, I'd have to circle this tube and be like, no, this tube goes to this tube and this trigger connects to this. And the drawing became really technical, like so I had to like take pictures. I had on my cell phone, I had so many pictures of instruments because I'd have to take pictures and like zoom in on like particular sections to like get everything right for the illustrator. She's not a brass player. And so there were so many times I was like,
Are you and the illustrator still friends?
Yeah. The tubas nearly did it for her though.
That was a stress test for your relationship.
Yeah, at first it was like the cornets, great, I can do this. The tenor horns, sure, I can do this. Trombones, we're good. Flugelhorn, we're good. And then we got into the euphoniums and the tubas, and it was like, oh my gosh, how much tubing do these things have?
I need all 26 feet to be accurately portrayed.
Right. Man.
You're talking about like the tube. It sounded like Zoom lessons. Like, you know, so wait, okay, your instrument isn't working. Is that tube still attached to that tube? No, that tube. Like,
right.
What a cool thing that you saw a problem in that you didn't see your instrument, you didn't see yourself, you didn't see a lot of things, and then you're creative enough and have follow through. I think there's a lot of people in the world that are creative. There's a lot of people in the world that have follow through. And there's kind of like a magical intersection on that Venn diagram of people who are creative and have follow through. And I am speaking to one of them right now, and that would be Amy. Lance has follow through now, but he's just, you know, he's phoning it in. So, and he used to be creative but didn't have follow through. And you'd think there was a moment where they met. No, it was a handoff. But
I'll slow you down if I disagree at any point.
I knew that was the resistance I was going to get. Would be like some head nods. It's so cool that you did this. I mean, this is a thing that you could just point to. I mean, you have made the world a better place because there are kids who can see themselves in a book. That's not a minor thing.
That's a huge compliment. Thank you.
Well,
what kind of reaction have you gotten from, lack of a better term, industry, like folks, you know, our peers?
It's been overwhelmingly positive. Four Bars Rest reviewed it, and they did a glowing review. Because like seriously, who's gonna like bash a cute children's book? To be honest, I mean, really,
it doesn't really feel like a hill you want to die on necessarily.
Right.
Like
right.
if you really don't dig it, it's like I'm not gonna tweet about this. I'm just gonna
next month we take on puppies.
Right. But at NABA, I think I did the math, and at the first NABA that I had it, a copy sold every 7 minutes. Wow. So it was people were buying 5 copies because they were buying them for their kids, their grandkids. Right. And everyone wanted a copy, and I just showed up and like would sign copies, and people were saying, I'm getting this for my kid's band director. I'm getting this book. I'm getting a copy for my community library or the school library, or I'm getting this for my neighbor. Like people were scooping up many copies at a time, for any kid in their life, because they love playing music, and the brass band community is overwhelmingly a community music making. And they want to pass on that feeling that they get. They want to pass on why they play in a brass band. And so I think they see an opportunity to do that in that book. They want to introduce the ensemble to the kids in their lives, because they've gotten so much joy out of playing in a brass band, and they want to pass that on.
It's what a gift. I'm just so happy that is a thing that is in the planet now.
Yeah, me too. Hey, Lance.
Yes?
Well, do you have anything to share about Houchin Horns?
You know, I was thinking about that this morning. I had a little crisis before we got started, and but I had some time to reflect, and I wanted to let you know that Houchin Horns stocks the finest makes of brass instruments, including Bach and Conselmer, Eastman and Shires, Engelbert Schmidt, Paxman, Tyne, and Yamaha, among many others. You know what else is they have a 15-day money-back guarantee with free shipping on all new instruments and accessories, with multiple easy financing options on all inventory.
And all of their instruments
apply.
All of their instruments, the tubes are attached to the right tubes.
To the right places.
They would all pass Amy's QR.
If not, I will circle them and send them back. Yes.
QR, yep. QC, QL, QZ.
Among the tubically accurate instruments are the unique Verus brand products, especially designed by the craftsmen and pro musicians of Houchin Horns. They do repairs and customizations in-house, and you can watch over 200 unique videos on Houchin Horns' YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Andrew Houchin Horns. And if that wasn't enough, if you enter the promo code Junkies at online checkout, you'll receive 10% off your purchase from HouchinHorns.com. Some limitations apply.
There you go. Thank you. As I thank you every time for specifying / so that none of us accidentally hit the wrong slash.
Horizontal slash.
Which everybody said back in like 2003. So
upside down slash.
Let's talk about your album, which is like it sounds wonderful, but even before you hear it, it sounds wonderful because it's got a fancy French title.
Ooh,
yes,
ooh la
yes.
La,
Couleur en mouvement.
Mouvement.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. I speak no French whatsoever, but it's the title of the CD is one of the pieces, and it's the name of the piece that inspired the CD. When I played it, yeah.
How so? How did that piece inspire the album?
So I played Colors and Movements for my master's recital at the RNCM, and I love the piece. It's wickedly technical for both the piano and the euphonium, but I love the piece. And so it was kind of like a little like fire lit, like, I need to remember this piece, and then I promptly lost it. I lost the copy of what we thought was an out of print piece of music, and it was not only I gotta add this in. It was not my music. It was.
Oh, this story's got some layers.
It was Steve Mead's music. I left it. I left my music at my recital jury. You know, the performance you have to do before your recital, you have to pass the recital jury. So I left my music, and all of my other music was there, but Colors and Movements was gone. And we thought it was out of print. So we had to contact the British equivalent of the Library of Congress to get a copy.
You left it in a pub, be honest.
We had to so for my final recital we had to have like a permission document from their like the British Library that we could use a copy because I lost it. So for my doctoral project, I actually so now we're several years later where I'm at Rutgers, and I was looking into things that I could do for my doctoral project, and I was going to put out a new edition of this piece because I really like the piece, and I still owed Steve a debt of one copy of Colors and Movements. So I actually looked up, I did a ton of research, and I found James Moreau's address. And I wrote him a letter asking him if I could put out a new edition of his work. And he said, well, you don't have to. It's back in print. So I was both very grateful and kind of annoyed because I needed a doctoral project, but I found a different one.
It'd be awesome if your doctoral project could involve a little bit of online shopping.
Yeah, exactly. So I promptly bought a copy for myself and had a copy sent over to Steve with a little note say I still owed you this. Oh, so yeah, but I love the piece, and now there's even, there's more of a history with the piece, and so, but I really like the idea of representing the colors. So then, when Lucy titled her piece, she has subtitles for the movements of her pieces. So her movements. Gosh, I can talk. So like Luminaries, the first Emmeline Pankhurst, that movement is subtitled in purple, green, and white. So we have colors. We have more colors there. And another piece that I thought really should kind of have be brought out was Chagallon Scenes, because it's just a cool piece.
Mm-hmm. I have a student working on that, so I've heard your version of that like a couple too many times, I'm sorry to say.
But it's a super cool piece. I'm sorry you've had to listen to me so much.
It's a great tune. Really good piece. More people should know about it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, well, let's put that on there because I think it's a cool piece. I think it's an accessible piece that people would enjoy playing. So I wanted to put that in, and it worked because we have an artist now featuring different paintings. And then I was looking for some more pieces. And at that point, kind of while all this was kind of in a blob of thought in my head, then I was asked if I wanted to be in on the Barbara York commission. And so her work is called Creative States. And so it's kind of like when you're creating something, when you're putting something out there, what emotions do you go through? So we now have colors, we have an artist, we have, so it all kind of just started taking place organically, and it was just like, oh, these all go together. And then I hate to say it, but Romance, the Elgar Romance, I just thought was a great arrangement. It has nothing to do with colors, but someone once told me that you don't want to completely kill a program with thematic material. You don't need to have everything, fit the theme. So when it was just a wonderful arrangement, and I wanted, to put it out there. So all of these things kind of were taking place around like 2017-ish. And then I thought I wanted to have something, to cover up, if we potentially had another kid. I wanted something to kind of fill in that gap, on my resume. I wanted, to not have a blank spot. And so, I recorded the CD, and, when was that? 2018. And then, the CD came out. I got the email that the CD was out and ready for pickup. And I said, well, I am in labor right now.
So, but at least it's only 10 minutes away. No, that was the book. Sorry, that was the book. I was like, you could just pop over, right?
So, well, CD Baby did the printing for that. So it was like 10 minutes away. Oh. But I was like, can you hold it for a little bit? And they were like, well, we don't normally hold, like this much, we don't usually hold inventory for people. And I was like, that's when I was like, well, I am having a child, like right now. So
like literally,
I am in labor.
Birthing a human.
I am in labor in the hospital. So you're going to have to wait.
There again, there's another example of a hill that other person on the other end of that probably didn't want to die on. Like, I'm sorry, it's policy that you take as long as you want. Yeah, we'll see you next year. It's fine.
So as for covering in the resume gap that a kid would leave, that was like right on time. So I couldn't have timed that any better. So I amended the booklet when I saw that the timing, and we knew what we were going to name our kid, because I knew that if I dedicated my book to my one kid, that I'd have to dedicate the CD to the other kid, because they'd at some point realize.
A book baby and a CD baby. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start referring to kids as resume gaps.
Oh man,
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Oh no, this is my third resume gap. Yeah. Yep. Her name is Mary. All right. Well, the last thing here before we let you go, or actually more accurately before we have you stick around briefly for the bonus episode, is that you have a new podcast, the New World Brass Cast. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a product of the pandemic. We were kind of like, we're all stuck at home and looking for ways to kind of keep our musical stuff going. And so Tony Granados and Aaron Campbell approached me, and they were like, well, we're thinking about doing a podcast about North American British brass banding. And I was like, well, that certainly sounds like fun. So we were coming up with some names, and all of them were really, they were kind of boring. So all the names are like, so which combination of North American and British brass band, like, So I suggested, I had a project that I had started years ago that failed, because projects fail sometimes, and we just don't advertise it, like I just did. But I was like, I have this website. It's New World Brass, and it was, it was kind of the idea that, like, North American, like, what's another term for that? It's the New World. So we thought that was a little bit more creative way of referring to it. So we started it up, and we put out our first episode in July. And now we are, we did a double episode with Ron Holtz and Dr. Drosty. And So yeah, we have recorded out through the end of the year. We have a competition going on right now for a intro song, because we're new, so we're still using kind of like a generic intro song, and we've had some like really good entries. I'm really excited. So yeah, it's a blast. We put out an episode twice a month. And as I said, we have some really pretty good guests. I'm amazed that we ask them and they say yes. So we're like, yay. And so we don't have I shouldn't say this. We don't have a ton of listeners yet, but we're building, and hopefully, I was joking with the guys before we started recording that we have a whole whopping like 10 listeners. So maybe we'll have like 12 after this.
You just stumbled on a couple of things which I think are briefly worth highlighting, which is that she talked about a project that she had that failed, which anybody who has done the equivalent of put out an album and put out a children's book and has premiered a piece with Wind Ensemble and has a podcast, there is absolutely no one in history who has ever had those 4 outputs who those were their first 4 attempts at outputs. Like, there's like everyone who succeeds at things fails at things, and every single podcast, every email newsletter, everything, every YouTube channel starts with 0 subscribers. 0. And you just have to keep showing up. And yeah, there's I had never heard of your podcast until today. And that's not because you're not doing a good job of marketing it. That's not because I'm not paying attention. It's because there are so many things in the world for me to listen to watch, to read, to all of those things, that there's somebody who is hearing this interview who this is exactly up their alley, and they had never heard of it, and they just went and subscribed while I'm still talking. But everybody starts somewhere, even somebody like Amy, who is obviously very accomplished and is already like doing the stuff. So if you're you could be a full-blown adult and starting a new thing. Just know that you're not going to get any traction right away. If you're young, you're not going to get any traction right away. But just do it, and you will eventually have a bunch of outputs like Amy has. And on podcasts, we highlight the ones that work out, right? In general, it's not like, hey,
we don't advertise.
Right. You planned an album like 12 years ago, and it was a cool idea, and then it went nowhere. Why don't you tell us about that? Like, that doesn't. Right. So, right. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen, because it did. So, it's just an important message for me to remember. And for everybody to remember is you got to do the thing, and it might not work.
Yeah, and with social media too, I feel like everyone advertises their successes so much, and we hide our failures. That it's so rare that we actually announce it on a podcast. I failed at a project, but now it's turned into a success because I took a lot of that stuff that I started and just switched it over, and this was the venue that worked. This was how I could channel all of that stuff that I started. And so we didn't have to start from complete scratch. We had kind of a base level already prepared for it, and so that benefited us on this project.
That's great. That's so great. And if you hadn't failed, in quotes, before, then you would have been starting from scratch, and maybe this wouldn't have worked out if you had started from scratch. Maybe it would have, but it's all about just constantly moving forward. That's all that it's about, and you are a great example of that. In spite of having 2 resume gaps, you are like putting out all of this stuff like it's constant. That's gonna stick for sure.
That's gonna stick. Yeah,
that's a good one. Well, this has been awesome, Amy. We're going to have Amy hang out for the bonus episode, which we are going to spend just a little bit more time with her. We sometimes get even less serious during the bonus episode. Although sometimes, like the bonuses, Sam Palafian's bonus episode, he started talking about like the history of the Armenian people and genocide, and it was like real, like there were tears.
Wow.
But then like we swung to like laughing tears, so it was all like, but that's not. We will probably keep things lighter. Sometimes we go heavier, but we just get to spend a little bit more time with every guest. You can go to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to support the show.
/ which
it is It is the slash that's like right next to all the other keys you hit, rather than the one that you have to look for. So yes. So, but you can become a Patreon patron today and get access to a whole bunch of bonus content and help support the show so that we can get to have more cool conversations with people like Amy Schumaker Bliss. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And that's going to do it for another episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.